So I guess I'll start with a question. I know Jeff and Smith have questions, and of course, we most want to hear questions that any of you guys out there have. The first one, funny, is just if you talk a little about like what got you into this line of work in headshot photography, what your background is, and what your journey so far has been in all this.
Sure. Well, my dad was a professional hobbyist back when film was, made it hard for people to be actual photographers. Is that me? No, that's not me. Um, Somebody's ringing. So anyway, so I was always interested in photography just because my dad was. He kind of got me started, and then I took an acting class in my 20s, and this is where the story becomes very familiar. My friends knew me as the girl with the camera, and this was, during film days, and I would just shoot my classmates, and eventually I realized I can make a living at it, put my portfolio together, and that was kind of the start of it. So here I am.
Yeah. In terms of, I mean, obviously, we recommend, we certainly, you're one of the photographers where we recommend, and we see you do some fantastic work. And I guess the question I have though is like when people ask, how does one look for headshot photography? Like, what should one look for? Because I think there's a lot of people out there, and they're like, okay, I need headshots. You Google it or whatever you do, and you find
Right.
all these. And I think sometimes there's a little bit confused about like what exactly you should look for in a headshot photographer.
Ooh, that's a really good question. First and foremost, in terms of business and marketing, what you should look for in a headshot photographer is the or I guess the question would be, does the style of the photographer fit your brand
Hmm.
as an actor? And this sort of applies to teens and up. I would say with kids, it's a little bit more forgiving because you don't have an issue with kids shooting headshots that look like sort of like their sexy version. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think you should look for photographers that fit your brand and not try to make a photographer take pictures of you that is a different style than what the photographer shoots. So, in other words, to be more specific, if your brand is really hot, good looking, you're going to end up on the CW shows, then you don't want to shoot with me. You want to shoot with somebody who makes you look like you belong on a CW show. If your brand is, very quirky and charactery and like real, then you want to find somebody like me who kind of caters to that like real people character niche, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, what constitutes a good headshot? So when people say, "Oh, I got all my headshots back," and like, and sometimes they'll go to like me or Jeff, or they'll go to their friends and they'll show them, tons, and they're trying to sort of figure out what is the right headshot. Like, what should one look for in deciding what constitutes a good headshot?
Yeah. Okay. There's two things, two elements.
Sure.
One is being very specific with your looks. Okay. So these days, just taking a nice picture of yourself is no longer acceptable
Mm.
and no longer, I guess, effective. So you want to be very specific about the character types you would be auditioning for. And those are the characters that you display in a headshot. And then the second thing is personality. That's what's going to sell you, right? And so by showing your personality, you're also showing in a headshot that you can act.
Mm.
And, I specifically tend to sort of like direct and do improv games, and we ad lib, we act out a scene. So basically, just, Jeff knows I've shot him, like that engagement with the actor is what brings out an emotional arc. So you're kind of showing them, hey, look, I can act, and there's personality, and you're not just staring at the camera looking vacant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So stay away from vacant stares and general pictures.
Yeah,
Okay.
your pictures kind of pop out. Remember, I had one with the glasses, and you were shooting from above, and I just remember it just like always got appointments. It was so cool.
So a couple other questions that I have as well is, so you kind of actually asked about like just take a good photograph. Now it's no longer the time. When is the best time? Because we have a lot of young people
Yeah.
who are maybe just starting to kind of start, or maybe I wanted to audition. Obviously we have some who are much further along, but for those who are really starting, like, when is the right time to get a headshot? Should one get one right away? Is it something, especially if one has maybe more limited means, is it something where do a little bit before you get it? Like, do you feel there's a time where maybe it's too soon to get a headshot? And if you talk a little bit about that.
I think if you want to get started and audition and get an agent to start getting auditions, I think ASAP. And
Mm,
even for young kids, I'm sure you have this, experience yourself. Kids aren't expected to have a huge resume.
right.
They're not expected to have a resume at all. So it's very easy for kids to get representation and start being sent out. And to get representation, you need a headshot. So basically, as long as parents are willing to drive, well, there isn't that much driving anymore. What am I saying? But pandemic changed everything. But as long as your parents are willing to set up like a self-tape room for you or drive you to auditions those rare times, then you need headshots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to something about looks. So
Yeah.
can we just describe a little more, especially for actors who are a bit
Yeah.
newer to this, what exactly is a look?
Yeah.
How does one, there's a tips on how one can kind of figure out what their look is.
Yeah, so a look is being specific about the characters that come across in your headshots. And basically, the characters are based on your age range and the auditions you would be targeting. So for kids, it's even gotten specific with kids. Before, it used to be just adults were specific and kids, you just do whatever. So now there's like categories for kids like the bully or the hip cool kid or the studious or the Disney girl, which is kind of like the girl next door version of, the kids version of girl next door, so, or like the Disney kid. So that's what I mean by specific looks. How you would figure them out is it's homework. Can I think put a link in here. Can I do that? Or maybe we could share it a little bit later if I
Yeah,
can.
absolutely.
But I have a list of marketing looks that are trending right now with agents, and I have it categorized into age groups. And I have one for kids and tweens and teens. So you can kind of go to that list and kind of see what like the popular looks are right now. And like I create this list, I update it a lot. It's based on like when agents send me their clients and kind of like what they're asking for. That's kind of how I get this information. And so if you can go through that list and just like figure out, okay, which ones resonate with me. And the way you figure that out is you want to think about how you look and what your essence can support. So if you look like, let's say you look like you look really beautiful and you can be a hero, right? Or a heroine. However, you start to speak and your voice is really mousy like this. Well, guess what? You can't do a heroine look. So you have to kind of like put together your essence and your look, and whatever those two can support is how you would pick out your looks. So the other question about branding versus looks. So your brand, you kind of want to think about your brand like this is my analogy. So let's say you have an outfit for the day, okay? And you're trying to figure out what hat goes with your outfit. So your brand is your outfit, your hat is your look.
Mm.
So basically, your brand is how you appear to people and what kind of roles they see you playing, because you have a certain vibe about you. That's your brand. And then the looks are specifically what looks fall within that brand.
Mm.
I hope that answered that question clearly.
It does. I'm trying to think of an example of that just off the top of my head of like, because especially with hats. Like, I guess I'm not too familiar with too many different types of hats. I guess like if one was wearing like a suit and they were wearing like a cowboy hat versus
That
a
would work exactly. So like
yeah.
you basically want the hat to match your outfit.
I see. Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Like a fedora or something like that.
Yeah, like I have on Instagram, I have a reel showing that example.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so people can just go to my Instagram reels, and there's one I do like a reel that like demonstrates the difference between brand and look.
Cool.
Um, what should an actor be expecting on the day of a headshot session? What actually, I mean, especially for an actor who's never done one before, what does that day sort of? I mean, obviously, I guess it depends depending on the headshot photographer, but maybe talk a little about from your experience what sort of actually happens that day.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that you can expect for a professional experience. But the main thing is, I guess you can't, well, let me just tell you what actors can't expect.
Sure.
You can't expect photographers to produce something out of nothing. So, what I'm getting at is preparation is key. You can't come into a photo shoot with just whatever's in your closet and show up and be like, here we go, here we are, here I am, let's shoot.
Yeah.
And sometimes parents are guilty of this too. So, if you come in prepared, you can expect for looks to be, I guess, created.
Mm.
You know what I mean? A little bit of guidance, of course, from the photographer in terms of what outfits match which looks. And maybe you're kind of off on your look. Maybe you picked a look that doesn't quite work with your essence. That's okay. You can expect a little bit of guidance from the photographer. Like, that's probably not a good idea because it doesn't fit your brand. Why don't we try this? And then at that point, I always advise people, because let's say you're doing 4 looks and you've prepared outfits for only 4 looks. Well, you're kind of stuck at that point if the photographer says, ooh, this isn't right for you. So I always recommend, when you go to my list, to pick out more than the package you're buying and to prepare for more than the package you're buying, because then you can kind of rely on the photographer's guidance in case you got something wrong and you don't have an agent or manager helping you.
All right, so I have a student that can't be there because it's her mother's birthday, and she's 15, very small. She's not going to get any of these older teen roles. I just saw her photo, and I might even send her to you. But she looks like an 18-year-old. The hair's perfect. It's just not who she is. She's an extravagant, She's not afraid to go out of the box and just be totally free and open as an actor. But she could play as young as, I mean, literally 12 because she's small. Or is there something you would
Yeah.
suggest for an actor like that who's sort of like not in these forms, but kind of wants to get out there?
Well, it sounds like, so every actor should decide a 7-year age range for themselves. And then that's how you would figure out which age group to go into when you're looking at my list. And it just sounds like the age range is off. Like they put her in like the 15 to 20 category.
Yeah, yeah, it was absurd. I
Yeah,
mean, she can act it, but she can't be. I mean, she
right.
could.
She can't support that when she walks in the room. She doesn't.
Yeah,
That's, yeah. So you have to take I mean, that's a really good example of not just essence, but you have to take your physique into consideration too when you're picking out looks. But in that case, it really doesn't matter how old you are. What matters is how old you can play. And hopefully, the photographer shouldn't know how old you are. You should give them an age range. And it sounds like she's more like, I don't know, 10 to 15. What's her
yeah.
age?
She can't even play 15, but yeah.
Like 15. Yeah, well then. Yeah, so you just have to go younger with her age range. That's all. You just have to shoot her like a kid. That means no makeup. Because,
Yeah.
kids under 13, I do not recommend and do not provide a makeup artist. I mean, unless the parents ask, and in that case, we do makeup like we do it on men.
Yeah,
Like
right.
the no makeup look.
You have such beautiful colors, and they really pop online, and we're constantly as actors, there's like a magic shot. All of a sudden you have a photo and you're auditioning, and
Yeah.
you don't have the right photo and you just don't get anything at all, and it gets very, very horrible. And I'm wondering, could you talk a little bit about that, because it's shifted since, I mean, I still audition, but only when they get the stuff. But the casting gets so many photos.
Yes.
And how is there a game in that as far as, I mean, there must be, because there is even for the school with color schemes and getting someone to notice it, not
Yeah.
just the actor, but how the whole picture comes together.
Yeah, I think you're talking about technical stuff.
Yeah, combining it, you do that. I mean, it's
Right.
beautiful what you do.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a colorful photo for that to happen. I think just technically, you really need to go with photographers who understand post. The problem is, like, okay, with film, you just used to take the film roll to the lab and they would process it and give you a proof sheet, and then you printed it at the lab, and whatever the lab did, they did properly because it was done in the dark room. The problem with the light room is that if a photographer doesn't understand post and how to process raw files, how to apply, just simple things like contrast and color correction, then it looks really muted and it looks very um, gray and just doesn't pop.
Yeah.
So when, casting directors are looking at thousands of photos for one role, you need strong photography. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
And whether it's my style or somebody who shoots really dark and moody, it doesn't matter. That's what you need. You need
Right.
that pop with like a pro who knows what they're doing in post.
Cool. We had a question from I think it's Instagram.
Oh yeah, I think about the looks, yeah, about your type, because I think that was, yeah.
Vanie, yeah, she does help you find your type, as long as you have some ideas and are watching
Oh,
shows.
that one. Do you ever get clients who don't know what their type is yet? Do you help them find it? I used to do an in-depth consultation, but then I created this list, and then I also have a consultation video that should help you at least get started and prepare. And then the day of, I will definitely guide you as long as you've prepared based on my guidance in advance.
A question that came up on Instagram, that, and by the way, Samantha's having a little bit of audio, so she's gonna message me the questions. What is the difference between a commercial headshot, and someone asked, and a theatrical headshot?
Oh, okay. So a theatrical headshot, here in California, we use that term to mean TV film. We're not necessarily talking about theater, but it could be. I know sometimes people mistake that to mean theater when they're from out of town. And then commercial headshot means specifically for commercials on TV. And the difference really is, for commercials, it's a lighter mood. So typically they want to see teeth in commercials because they don't want you hiding your teeth, because commercials are happy and are supposed to make you feel good because they're selling you things that they want to make you buy. So typically, of course, there's always that commercial that's like dark and moody, like the VW commercials where there's a car accident, but yeah, so typically commercials are lighter in mood. And theatrical, because it covers such a wide spectrum of TV and film, it also covers comedy. So it can be quirky, but it can be also dark and moody if it's for like a procedural or a 1 hour drama. So that's the difference.
Should you have uniforms in your headshot? Is that the question, Samantha?
Should you have uniforms in your headshot? Is that the question?
I think that's the question, yeah.
Yeah. If you had asked me that 5 years ago, I would have said casting directors frown upon uniforms in a headshot, because it used to be that they were very offended, like, you don't need to spell it out for me. I have an imagination. I know you can play a doctor. But now it's kind of like the 80s have come back, and uniforms are popular. I don't know what's going on, but agents are asking for them a lot. And that doesn't mean you're not going to run into agents who say, no way, don't do that, that's cheesy. But the majority of agents and casting directors are welcoming uniforms. And it probably has to do with the fact that they get 5,000 submissions and their little thumbnails. And so it just makes their life easier, less friction, Not that they don't have an imagination, it's just quicker for them to just see, oh wow, yeah, I can apply him as a doctor.
Right.
So yes, you should do uniforms. The popular uniforms right now are like doctor, nurse, and then I've had people do like construction, blue collar. The most popular one for commercials is the polo shirt for the helpful employee right now.
Mm, yep.
Right.
Another question that came up was patterns. The question was just, what about patterns?
Yeah, don't get bogged down in minutia. Like, you know, that is not what's gonna make a headshot effective. Like, oh my God, I'm wearing patterns. Honestly, what I talked about in the beginning about making sure you're specific and you have personality is what really matters. In my mind, there are no rules right now. And I've been doing this for 23 years. Like there were some rules like no patterns a while ago. But now the way I approach it, and I haven't had a single, agent that sends clients to me complain about this at all. So the way I approach it is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Is that me? That was me.
Oh, good.
Um,
I thought it was me. I was like, oh, good.
Notifications. Let me turn that off.
Doodle-doo.
But the way I approach it is, there are no rules. It's only what works and what helps get your message in front of other people clearly. So if wearing a pattern blouse is going to very clearly show a casting director that you're going for the Midwestern country girl, then hell yes, wear patterns.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same with jewelry, same with hats, same with scarves. Don't worry about all that stuff. It's really what matters is, how would you dress the character when you go into that room for an audition? That's how you should dress the character in your photos.
That's very cool.
That's
I
great.
mean, we keep encouraging that in the training. Is like you gotta, personal objects, the physical environment of the set and the place and where you are. But really, truly, the costume does transform you
Oh,
emotionally as an actor. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it sure does. The
That's
makeup,
great for. I
hair,
didn't even think about that for photography. Usually, it's like, oh, I have to lug all this crap, but you really do become different people when you take on their clothing and the. Yeah, very cool.
yeah, agree.
Well, I think that's a great place to sort of end it right there. Bonnie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and the people on Instagram and our students about what goes into a headshot. I know that it's sometimes really helpful to hear it from they ask us questions about it, but we always feel like let's actually have them talk to a professional. So
Right.
really appreciate it. I think we have your various handles and stuff on our Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, Samantha. So we'll make sure that people know where to find
Yes.
you. And yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for all those on Instagram Live or what have you for checking this out. And make sure to check out Vanie's stuff because it's some really impressive work.